Hello everybody, welcome to Tuesday TV, your global news channel. I'm Maya Tusi, and this is your latest news update from the chaotic circus that is British politics. The mainstream political parties continue to prioritise short-term plasters as opposed to actually focusing on long-term planning. Usually this is a problem for governments, parties in government, because they say, well, we just got into government, we only have a few years, so we have to do anything to stay in power. So we're going to give you guys short-term promises, short-term solutions. Now we have the same problem with parties outside of government. Even though they have years to prepare, they are now pushing for short-term idiotic solutions, including increasing economic migration, not high-skilled, not the billionaires or millionaires or who are going to be creating jobs or businesses. Nope. Those who are going to be also bringing in dependents who are going to be on benefits. This country, in the UK, don't have the money. We don't have the space, we don't have the resources. It's a whole different situation when it comes to economic migration, even compared to, for example, the United States. If you actually have something to contribute, as long as you respect the American flag and you behave like a normal person, if you go and pay taxes, create jobs, then you will be welcome. It's a whole different problem in Western Europe, especially in the UK. Now, Reform UK is supposed to be an alternative party. Now, obviously, they're not necessarily that alternative. They are a mainstream party filled with former Tory members. One of the leaders, this is the Reform UK's council leader in Kent, a very influential figure in the southeast of England, has decided to write a letter to the Labour government and the Home Secretary expressing grave concerns about the new government plans to have some restrictions for visas for economic migrants who are going to be working in the NHS, in the National Health Service and the care sector. Now, even the Labour government, under political pressure, they came up with a policy to restrict immigration, some of the visas. Even Labour. Now, they don't mean it, they don't believe in it, but they've been forced to do it. Now we have opposition parties saying, who are supposed to be right-leaning, saying, no, we shouldn't restrict, because what are we going to do? Who's going to be doing the low-skilled work for us, including the social care? Maybe you could look into long-term planning instead of panicking about the next 6 months. Maybe you could actually have a plan to start training up British people to do those jobs. Just like how the leader of Reform previously said that. I'm not saying it. That came out of Nigel Farage before. We're going to get to that. But let's talk about this letter and this person. Linden Kamkaran essentially wrote this letter with some support from others. This whole idea, the policy, will be expiring, the current version, on the 22nd of July, which is there's wider kind of restrictions on immigration rules, especially when it comes to the NHS and social care visas, announced by Keir Starmer in May. Now, they have now, well, not just one person, there's a Reform UK senior members and councillors in southeast of England who wrote this letter warning about the negative impact on a number of displaced social care workers that may have had, because they will be losing their jobs, and also the sponsorship providers. Anyway, they've also said that when care workers, this is part of the letter, when care workers' existing visa expires, they wrote, to keep a visa, they would need to earn at least £41,000 a year. The new minimum salary for skilled worker visa. Good. Should be higher, by the way. But added to the national insurance rise, this is totally unsustainable, they said. This letter said. And the risk is that many care workers at this level will go home and leave the providers on the cliff edge. So for once, our government decided to actually increase the requirements. Somehow, the Reform UK councillors are not happy about this because they're panicking. Now, as I said, at the same time in May, a couple of months ago when this was announced, Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform, said that care staff were not skilled and overseas care workers should should only be allowed in on strictly time-limited visas. More widely, he has called for zero net migration, which, by the way, is a stupid idea. I'm going to explain why. Meaning there can be no more arrivals than departures. Firstly, zero net migration is stupid because it makes no sense. It's basically just saying one in, one out. You need negative immigration in the UK for some time. You need to make sure more people leave than come in. You don't have the resources, you don't have the schools, you don't have the hospitals, you don't have the land. So what are you talking about? I mean, the best kind of centrist, moderate way of saying it is, yeah, one in, one out, net zero immigration. It sounds sexy, but it doesn't do anything. But that's at least that was the leader of Reform at the time. The problem with this is that Nigel Farage will not be leader forever, even if we go with what Farage said in May, as opposed to the rest of his senior members in Kent. What is the future of Reform? When you have so many prominent members of Reform going up in the party, getting a lot of power, who are at this point basically left-wing. Nigel Farage is not going to, even if, for the sake of the argument, we will say Nigel Farage is a very sound, right-wing, economically free market politician. But he's not. He used to be. Even if he were now, he's not going to stay as leader forever. Nobody lives forever. Even Khamenei is going to die eventually in Iran, in his bunker. The future of Reform. Who are the future of the Reform? Well, Linden is one of them. Ex-BBC. Yes. Reporter and producer at BBC News London. Now, she spent a good few years at the BBC as a former establishment Tory as well. Production, news planning and reporter as well. Before that, she was a civil servant. I mean, with all the respect to civil servants, the problem with this is that what are the odds that you're going to have someone who is basically a left-wing Tory, was ex-BBC, and happened to be a civil servant, and this civil servant is going to be a good civil servant, apparently, right? That it just proves that they're all political people anyway in civil service. They're not supposed to be, but they are. Anyway, meanwhile, all this is going on while today's chaotic news came out, as also reported on 2c.tv, our website. About 1.3 million, specifically 1.26 million foreign nationals are now receiving universal credits. Universal credits is basically the benefit system in the UK. This is according to the DWP, the government themselves. This is now up from 883,000, which was in 2022 under the Tories, got up massively to 1.3. Now, EU nationals account for the majority, classic, with over 770,000 claimants, and then non-EU migrants as well. That includes illegal migrants and those who are economic migrants. A lot of them are economic migrants who are not supposed to be on benefits, but they are. A lot of them are now unemployed. Now, those who say just bringing in low-skilled economic migrants, everything's going to be fine, well, not necessarily. Some people come in, they bring in dependents, and a lot of them will be on benefits. So that is not a net contribution on behalf of that migrant or their families. They will be taking more from the system than given in. A lot of the low-skilled economic migrants, they will have a job at first, then they'll lose it, and they'll be on benefits. We don't have a system to actually keep an eye on this properly. The issue with the NHS and social care, none of these idiots, apart from some of the Tory politicians, not all of them, the only people came up with the policy of long-term planning, training up British people, making sure that the sector, social care, is sexy enough for people to join and have better pay, better working conditions so that British people could be trained to do it. Everybody else, the rest of the Tory party, Labour and Reform, are basically just going with short-term plasters. It's absolutely fascinating. Now, at the same time, dependent of migrants, that is becoming a bigger problem because we just heard today that Afghan soldiers who were granted asylum since the fall of Afghanistan will now be allowed to bring more of their relatives meaning that the number of Afghan migrants will be more than around 150,000, again, on top of everything else. Now, you could be compassionate, you could be a humanitarian, absolutely fine. It would be nice to look after people. But first, look after your own people first. Sort out your own house first. Secondly, you have to get to a point to realize you can be generous, but where is the limit? When you have a small country in terms of geography, the UK, where it's located, and you have billions of people around the world who would be happy if you're generous towards them. Billions would like to come to the UK. Are you going to say yes to all of them? If you're going to say no to some of them, where is the limit? What's the number? How many of them will you let in? And then you're going to tell the others, sorry, no more? All these liberal wishy-washy sycophants of the political establishment who continue to push this argument, all refugees are welcome here, all migrants. Where is the limit? You can't just say we have to be compassionate towards everybody, and then at the end of the day, when the country is fully full, and even the liberal side will understand it, then they're going to have to close the doors. And the same people who've been pushing for this, they're going to have to explain to the other foreigners who are also in need that, I'm sorry, we did say all migrants, all refugees, but just not you. Billions before you, but not you. They don't understand logic. They're not going to think about this because it's all about emotional rhetoric. They don't think about the logistics or the resources. And now our politicians are doing the exact same thing. Back then what we used to do was just complain and say it's the state that's doing it. It's the civil service pushing our idiotic, amateurish politicians to keep doing it. Whether it was a Labour government or a Tory government, the idea was that civil servants and the vested interests keep pushing it. And these politicians, these government ministers, they say, oh, okay, fine, let's have a few more migrants, and then. But that was the excuse, right? Civil service and many others, the Quangos, they wanted to happen, they kept pushing it. When you are an opposition party, outside of government, outside of civil service, what is your excuse? It's because these people are the same people that I complained about. People like Kamkaran, whatever her name is, she was a former civil servant. Ex-BBC, ex-left-wing Tory. They are the establishment. It's weird. It is, there is also the idea that the way the mainstream media have been reporting on this, right? So they are still making excuses. So I saw The Guardian reported on this story. The Guardian basically made the Reform Council leader sound reasonable. Just, oh yeah, but she's just urging the government to help the social workers. And like, since when is The Guardian now going to be defending Reform UK? There's a whole different problem now we now have with the media, the press and the media. Anyway, while we are here, let's just quickly get some reaction from you lovely people. Farage, as an MEP, said, leave the EU and control our borders. Now, as an MP and future Prime Minister, he is a pipe piper of a, you know what, he cannot be trusted. Again, what Kamkaran has said goes against what Nigel Farage himself has said in May. Nigel Farage himself in May said the opposite. But again, Nigel Farage will not be able to be leader forever. Some of these people are going to become leader eventually. That is the future of reform. I stand with 2CTV. Thank you, but yeah, but you make it sound like a political party. That would be a terrible idea. I'm afraid to say that as soon as I can, I will be leaving my beautiful country where I can no longer live as a British man. Many, many others, especially those with talent and money, are leaving because things are just getting very, very difficult. And there are those countries that will be welcoming those who would be contributing to those countries. And this is a sad state of affairs that we're getting to this point. Anyway, what's this one saying? Simon says, funny how fast you change your tune. You seem like you have become mainstream media. LMAO. Can somebody translate this nonsense? Change my tune on what? That foreign work has been prioritized in the UK. That's been the same view I've had since I was born. Change my tune on just migration in general? No, I've had the same view since I was born. Which bit? Change my tune on how stupid politicians talk nonsense, like this reform idiot. I've been saying the same thing for a long time. Actually, to be honest, that's more about the last 6-7 years. Because before that, I used to be a Tory, and I used to be I wasn't doing this. I was just a party member, so obviously I was a sycophant. I was like, anything that the Tory party said, I'll have to defend. I was young. Even back then, I didn't really defend everything. But as a party member, you're told you have to just keep your head down if you want to be a candidate. We still obviously debated things, but yeah, back then was the only time that I would have basically publicly not speak out against stupid politicians at the time, the Tories. But that was years ago, almost a decade ago now. Otherwise, I'm not really sure what Simon is drinking. It's a little bit too early to drink, Simon. Somebody explain what this idiot's talking about. Right, while we wait for Simon to return after he gets his second drink, Jojo says you should stay and fight for your country. Now run people. I think I mean not run people. Well, it depends who they are, the people who would run, including like myself or anybody else. If you are a soldier, then don't run. If you are in politics, ideally don't run, because if you're in frontline politics, that means you care enough to sacrifice everything and your own personal life and your family to be in politics. Even I would criticize those who are on frontline politics and then they decide to, for example, just leave, unless they have a legitimate reason, for safety reasons. But obviously, anybody else I do not blame. Those who just have a business, those who do media like myself, I don't blame people for leaving a place that is becoming terrible to make a better future for their family. But yes, those who are fighters, those who are, whether you're a militant, you're a soldier, you are a politician or a candidate in politics in general, yeah, probably best. It will be a bad look if you leave. It's not a good look when political activists leave the country. But and then there are people who say, "I will stay and fight until I die. I won't run." But what is fight? The people who say, "I'll fight," they don't fight. They just stay at home. Fight is a very specific word. Fight isn't just expressing your opinion online. Fight means fight. You can either do it democratically, go and set up a party, go take over a party, become an MP or whatever. Or if you're going to do it revolutionary, which is illegal, don't do it, treason, you can go and fight on the street. But just staying at home, like, well, I'm staying in the country. This means I'm fighting. That doesn't really mean anybody's fighting. So those who are fighters should fight, obviously. Yeah, this one says, if you leave, you're running. If you run, you're on allowed back. There's no constitution or any legislation about this. Those who do run, theoretically, for example, Iran becomes free, I will technically be allowed to go to Iran. I'm not going to go to Iran because I can't relate to that culture anymore since I was a kid. But nobody will tell you. And people will have opinions, but it doesn't really matter what people say. You can leave the country. You can even go to exile and come back, and you are allowed back. But if you leave, yeah, you're running to make yourself better and your family better. If you are, as I said, a political leader or an activist or a soldier, yeah, don't leave, because it's just a bad look. It doesn't help. If you've created this fight, politically speaking, then why would you just give up? If you give up, then obviously be honest. Simon is back. You are Reform's #1 fan. Oh, was I? How fast things change. Simon, you need to stop drinking. You are getting a little bit more drunk. So my position has been quite clear since the days of my party political days, which was, again, was it 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And I don't do party politics. I support a party or a candidate on election day, depending on who they are and what they're doing. So hypothetically, next election, if the Liberal Democrats or the Green Party bring me the best manifesto and the best candidate, I will support them. Obviously, that's never going to happen, not with those two parties. But I voted Reform, I have voted Tory, I voted Brexit Party. I don't tend to just stay with one party because I don't believe in sycophantic tribal party politics in Britain. I used to when I was a kid. I grew up. So yes, there was a time when I did say some good things about Reform, but even at the time, I also said some bad things about Reform when they were messing up. Same as the Tories. It's interesting because recently I said something good about one of them. I think it might have been Robert Jenrick. I said one good thing about Jenrick. Everybody started attacking me. I was like, whoa, it's not like I'm saying go vote Kemi Badenoch. She's an idiot. The other day also I mentioned something right that Richard Tice said as Reform, is it deputy? I think it's a deputy. And then the people were like, oh, now you're Reform. I was like, you can't say anything apparently. I don't really care about people's tribes when it comes to politics. Jojo's back saying that's why we have millions of immigrants here, because they ran. There's a difference. The whole point is the difference between what type of immigrant you are, wherever you are going. The problem that any country should have is there are two issues. One is countries that don't have space and resources like the UK. Then the second point will be the pressure on the culture and identity. If you have a lot of people coming into a country like the UK or anywhere with no respect to the values, and they want to take rather than give, they will take from the system rather than contribute, then that just becomes a problem. Forget about space, forget about lack of resources. Whereas if you have many people, and throughout history has happened many times, whether you want to call them job creators, whether you're going to call them the contributors, even the rich, the millionaires or whatever, those who do move, not those who go and invest money in some place like all the Chinese and Russians who came and bought all these apartments and flats in London and left them empty. That's a bad idea. Actually assimilating, that never actually caused any harm. Those people become settlers. The United States of America was created as a project based on that. Settlers, mostly from Europe and some from other countries and continents. People said that America was always a nation of immigrants. No, it's a nation of settlers. There's a difference. Right. Where are we? PC says, I saw Ramadan advertised on a bus today. The UK is like, why is Ramadan still being advertised on a bus? It's finished. Come on, guys. I think if this is true, this clearly shows that the TfL just don't really care about removing old adverts. Dear Tusi, I'm genuinely sad that you have to leave the UK, but you must put your family first, and now your famous face, please keep a bodyguard with you. Yeah, but I'm supposed to, but the Viking is not happy when I go places without him. When you make life changes, getting married, having children, makes any man consider how much risk an individual can accept. But this is the thing that many others won't understand in terms of the individuals, humans, in any sort of tribe, in any country. There will come to a point where it's not really just about you. It's about people around you. It's about your loved ones. Even those who would say, well, I will want to fight. No, okay, they're going to come for you now. What are you going to do? If Salman Rushdie had many children, even without children that follow him around, he would still have to go and hide. You can't just stay in the middle of the street and get killed by the IRGC. And even Salman Rushdie, despite moving around to keep himself safe, despite having security, he was still attacked. But there are people sitting behind their keyboards saying, well, we are fighters. We should stay on fight. Well, okay, well, let me know when the IRGC comes for you. Let me know how that feels. Should we go to the members quickly? Right. Pete says, anyone that now says vote reform needs their bumps feeling with £4 bump remover. Thanks, Pete. So disgusting how all our governments are doing mass migration. It's like they want us to rise up. Mexicans last week. The more chaos, the more people rely on government. Same here in Canada. Over 800,000 in 7 months have been let in at the tune of 83,000 a year per migrant. That's a lot. No wonder people are pissed off, essentially. But so that's the thing. Less the British girl from your last live stream. Canada was a good example decades ago when they were open and generous towards the people who wanted to settle in Canada and actually bring something to contribute. That's not the same now as what's been going on in Canada over the last couple of decades, over the last 20, 30 years. These are just immigrants with also different values who are going to take from the system rather than give to the system. That is the big difference. Vetting and follow-up. What are the motives of the migrants? The citizens need to come first with housing. The housing thing is just one tiny issue. Again, the attack on the culture and identity being undermined is a whole different problem. And you can't really vet people in that sense. Not really. It's very difficult. You just have to be tough and basically be very selective based on what you see on the surface in terms of values, in terms of what cultural religion they're from, for example. This is the only way. And you have to also promote what you stand for. We don't really promote. Our establishment doesn't really promote British values. So a lot of the young people don't even know what Britishness means. So Winnie says, and they wonder why the benefits bill is so high. How many people who have never paid into the system are screwing us over? And a lot of people are also self-entitled. I've met enough certain type of migrants from the third world who just believe that they're entitled to it. They just walk around, take, and if you tell them, for example, to at least integrate, they will say, no, we're entitled. Because apparently the reason that the third world is the third world is because the white Western Europeans were successful. No. Even before that, you were living in an S-hole. Because you were all tribal from the beginning. Even when we had the ancient empires, again, the Egyptians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, those other tribes all around, when they were not conquered, they were chaotic. AJ says the reform is over. The way Farage is leading reform means that they won't survive the next election. By the way, you are to blame, as we were hit with a power cut while watching this live. What's happened? We have to blame someone. Thanks, AJ. So that reminds me, let's not forget, in the early 80s, there was a political breakaway, like now. At the time, it was the SDP, the Social Democrats. And the first 2-3 years of the parliamentary term, so we are in the first year, right? The first 2-3 years, as a new party, because everybody was like, we don't want Labour, oh, let's fight against the Tories, they got to over 50% in opinion polls. Over 50%. Everybody was like, this is it. The two-party system is gone, SDP is coming, they're not perfect, but let's get behind them, it's the only way we can. Then obviously, just like any other new party, a lot of pressure, and the true face, the mask was slipping quickly. And when the election came, especially in 83 and also 87, they went down massively. I'm not saying there's a guarantee that Reform UK will definitely go down. Reform UK could actually even form a government. And that is not a good thing. If you don't know when you're voting for a party to form a government, if you're voting for a party to send a message to the establishment, that's different. If you're voting for a party to form a parliamentary government, in parliamentary democracy, if you don't know who's going to be Home Secretary, who's going to be Health Secretary, who's going to be Culture Secretary, it's going to be a bit of an issue. There's going to be at least 20 Cabinet Secretary jobs. There's going to be many more Government Minister jobs. And right now, Reform UK has 4 MPs, which means those other minister jobs will have to come from the new MPs that they will be winning. Now, some people who don't really care about politics, they're like, well, that's good, right? Fresh faces. The fresh faces you don't know. You have no idea who they're going to be. And people would have thought, well, they're all part of the same party, so they're all going to be right-wing. Well, we've already seen how much of a big tent Reform UK has become, like the Tories, like Labour. People voted for Keir Starmer to become Labour leader because he promised them to be actually left-wing. Now he's just become a statist. He's betraying the left and the right. Reform UK already have the prominent members being the left-wing Tories, part of One Nation Tories, joining them. Some of these people are going to become MPs. Some of these people, the former Tories, left-wing Tories, are going to become the government ministers. And then everyone's going to be like, oh, Reform government is a bit left-wing. Because you didn't know who was going to be the ministers. When nobody would know. Because they will have to form it when they have enough MPs. And they only have 4 for now. Anyway, as an American with a Scottish father, I love visiting the UK. If Brits leave, it becomes Britainstown. I can't go there. Please don't leave your country. They will win. It's not about one person or 2 people leaving. It's also, even if everybody stays, look what happened to Spain. Look what happened to Spain. When the Islamic Empire came, Spain fell. How did Spain survive? There had to be a crusade. I'm not saying it's the same example, but I'm saying even when Spain, everybody stayed in Spain, the country changed. The whole land changed. And also the West, which is now Portugal. Then Rome had to come and kick him out with the help of the English, obviously. Nobody left. Everybody stayed and got oppressed. It's not black and white. The reason I'm challenging certain comments is because it's not a video game. It's not like, well, if this doesn't do this, then obviously this will have. No, that's not how life works. Okay, anyway. There is a nice Templar says, a return to Christ is needed. Church is now open. But there is a resurgence, at least in the UK, France and Belgium. Not everywhere, but yeah. Karen says that we should be elevating care workers instead of it being seen as a dead-end job. Paying someone the least that you can is telling them that they are undervalued. So it's absolutely spot on. So the same could be applied to the general concept of healthcare, the National Health Service, hospitals and everything else. Firstly, you have to reform everything, but you have to create a situation where it's not really just about pay, but pay symbolically is very important. But you can't have a system, for example, where it's just a bottomless pit and you keep just throwing money at the NHS, billions and billions, and then you're like, well, we're trying to increase salaries. That doesn't even happen. It's not about that. If you reform it properly, decentralize it, then you can actually pay them properly. That also includes social workers. But pay is just symbolic. Well, it's very important, but in terms of if you want to make them feel valued, you have to also make the job itself as a concept sexy enough. You also have to ensure the same way that a number of countries, including, at least in most places now, depending on the state you're talking about, in America, becoming a police officer, you have to have that value. It's duty. It's like becoming a soldier. And people will respect it. Again, depending on the state. Whereas, for example, becoming a police officer, part of the London Metropolitan Police Service, has also become, like social work, like the NHS, like becoming a teacher, it's just become, oh, I don't know what to do. Should I join the Met? Okay, you become a police officer. So partly is the pay, that has to be fixed, and partly is about the values around the job itself, the position itself. Anyway, there's so much to unpack here, but we're going to take a break because in about an hour, we are going to come back with my godfather, Andrea Walker, who will be joining us on this channel to talk about our upcoming rally. Subscribe to the channel. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.